Oh yes, we're turning our attention now to the, should I say, controversy now that's been trailing the signing of the budget. The budget has been signed into law by the acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, but it looks like there's been some complaints trailing the implementability or otherwise of the 2017 budget. Joining me now is the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Senator Udoma. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
What is this controversy about?
Well, budgets are always controversial, always. Because basically, it's, the executive makes proposals, and then the National Assembly considers the proposals. And there are various interests. Every member of the National Assembly represents a particular interest in this particular constituency. And therefore, it's a negotiation. Basically, that is how budgeting is all about. It's all about settling the different interests. You have a limited amount of resources, and those limited amount of resources, have to be spread and spent consistent with the administration's programs and policies.
Do you see things a little differently now? I mean, because you have been in the Senate before. You understand, how jealously members of the National Assembly guard their powers of appropriation. And you also understand now that you're on the other side, in fact, in charge of budgeting,
yes,
how it is that the executive, takes pains to go through a planning process for the budget. And it would seem that when eventually it goes to the National Assembly, it doesn't come out how we have planned it. How do you think this can be managed?
Well, basically, it's by engagement and more engagement. This year's budget was better than last year's budget. Next year's budget will be better than this year's budget because we all learn. And basically, we will start early, engage the National Assembly early, explain to them what the government's programs and objectives. And you'll find that, with those engagements, there'll be improvements.
You're sure that's going to get better? Because people believe that usually in the third year of an administration is getting closer to an election year, and the infighting becomes even tougher.
We'll try and manage it. Basically, I'm an optimist. I never start off by thinking anything is impossible. Basically, what you do is, at each stage, you explain the objectives, of the government. In this particular case, it was likely to get easier. Why do I say that? We have an economic recovery and growth plan. And that economic recovery and growth plan was developed after extensive consultation with the National Assembly. So I went and led teams, and we met with the National Assembly, we met with relevant committees, and we took their input on board in developing this plan, which the President launched. So that will help us, because when we are engaging, we will both have to agree that the budget has to be in accordance with the plan, and that limits the areas of disagreement.
But then we're still getting this, we're still getting, will I say, a threat now of going to the Supreme Court to interpret the limits of the powers of the National Assembly. Do you think that is expedient?
Well, I think basically you discuss and negotiate. And at the end of the day, you will see how far you can go as far as that is concerned. But ultimately, whether anybody goes to court or doesn't go to court, in the end, you're going to have to sit down and talk. So ultimately, disputes over budgeting, you have to sit down and discuss them.
We said we were going to take a look at some of the assumptions underlying the 2017 budget and wonder if it's truly, even by your own assumptions, even by the assumptions presented by the executive, is it an implementable budget? You had 2.2 million barrels per day as what you hope to produce per day from crude oil. The price is at $42.5 US. I think that's gone slightly up now.
Yes, the National Assembly increased it to $44.5.
Is that still safe for you?
Well, we work within it.
We work within it. Okay, so and the production has been left at 2.2 million barrels per day. Are we currently doing 2.2 million barrels per day?
Not quite, but we have the capacity to do so.
Why do we keep this estimated 2.2 million barrels per day? We're conservative with the price of oil, but not conservative with the production. Why is that? Actually,
the production, we can actually do more than 2.2. So I think the problems of production have been the disruptions in the Niger Delta. So these are the things that can be fixed.
We had the same estimates in the 2016 budget. Did we ever do 2.2?
2016 was a very, very bad year. We had, the level of disruptions was unprecedented. And so we didn't achieve it. But it is not, the issue, the fact of the matter is that we have the capacity to produce more than 2.2. Okay. We have the capacity. So we really should work hard to achieve it. And also we need to achieve it for so many reasons. We need the revenues. And
so we're looking at now an average exchange rate of 305 naira to the dollar, which is perhaps where it is now at current CBN official exchange rates. But then when we look at the target inflation rate of single digits, aren't we being overly optimistic?
No, that's not the target for 2017. No, it's not.
What is the target?
The target for 2017 is about 15.7. Right now we're about 16.
Okay, so you think that is safe enough?
It's achievable.
Okay, well, so we're proposing to ensure that 30%, a little bit above 30% is going on capital expenditure.
Yes.
Considering that we are in the middle of this year, the budget was signed in June, how feasible is it to spend 30% of the budget on capital expenditure?
Well, okay, are you talking about the amount or the percentage? Because if it's the percentage, yes, it is possible within that time to spend 30% of whatever we spend. However, in terms of the amount, it's not possible to spend all of it because if we let me put it this way. If the budget runs the way the law provides, that is, runs from June to June, yes, but we are hoping to change the fiscal year. We are hoping for 2018 to submit the budget to the National Assembly by early October so they can pass it by December. If that works out, which we're optimistic it will, then the 2017 budget will be a very short budget. It will be a budget of 6 months as opposed to 1 year. And that means that when we're preparing the 2018 budget, we should roll over a number of the projects in the 2017 budget into the 2018 budget, so that we can now start from January to December and go back to the normal fiscal year.
Considering just how tough things usually get, within the executive, I mean, there are challenges of even meeting the targets that we have. You just said 2016 was a bad year.
Yeah.
And then looking at sometimes the friction that goes on between the National Assembly and the executive arm of government, do you think that this yearly budget really works for us?
Well, what's the alternative? I mean, the Constitution provides for yearly budgets. The issue really is making sure that we try and get the sequencing right. We try and get the budget to the National Assembly in time. We encourage them to pass it in time so that we start January to December. That makes planning for everybody easy. Because basically, this budget, just like the previous budget, we are focusing on the private sector. We want to create the enabling environment for the private sector. So the private sector needs to know what the budget is so that they can plan. So to have a more predictable budget, January to December, that is our aim. And what has happened, and the reason you want to ask, why haven't you gotten it right? Basically, over the last 10 years, we started off, once you miss the sequence, you now end up finding that you're always running to catch up. So you start 1 year in March, the next year you start in April, the next year you start in May. So really, this is why it's important that we sit down with the National Assembly and get the budget back to January to December.